Och varmt välkommen till Småbolagsdagarna i Stockholm. Den tredje dagen som vi kör här mellan 8 och 10 juni. Vi kör för 9:e gången i rad och vi välkomnar dig som sitter vid din skärm för att följa våra spännande tillväxtbolag. Mitt namn är Linda Wikström. Jag är moderator här under förmiddagen idag och jag är väldigt glad att få presentera vår första presentation. Please welcome Mr. Mikhail Damrin, representing Kopy Goldfields. Are you with us, Mikhail?
Yes, good morning. I'm here.
Good morning. Where are you at the moment?
I'm around Moscow. Moscow is in lockdown, so most of the families, many families left Moscow,
Yes.
just seeking to be safe on this coronavirus epidemic.
Yeah, yes. We are very happy to have you here with us, even if it's by Zoom. So I would like to leave the stage to you, and I'm looking forward to your presentation of Kopy Goldfields. Please, Michael.
Thank you very much, and good morning to everyone who really made an effort and wake up so early to listen to Kopy Goldfields and our presentation. And we are creating a leading Russian mid-cap gold exploration and production company. On last week, we made an announcement about making a merger with Amur Zolota, and we creating a totally new story within the historical development of Kopy Goldfields. So we are creating a company with extensive gold resources and reserves in Russia. We have complementary business structures, which we think will create a unique combination of our teams and with our assets. The deal is made as a reverse takeover where Kopy Goldfields acquires Amur Zolota assets. The transaction will add gold production revenue and cash flow to Kopy Goldfields' current very much exploration focus. Transaction is valued at 1.1 billion Swedish kronor, or about $120 million. Shareholders representing around 30% of Kopy Goldfields shares undertaken to vote in favor to support the transaction on the coming AGM. And there will be a continuity of independent board, adding new board members, Eric Force as an independent director and Arsen Idrisov as a director representing the owners of Amur Zolota. We see this combination as very two complementary businesses which create a very good match for each other. So Kopy Goldfields is based in Stockholm and Amur Gold has the headquarters in Moscow. Kopy Goldfields is listed on Nasdaq First North Growth Market in Stockholm, and Amur Zolota is a privately owned company with two major shareholders, HC Alliance Mining Group and Lexer Group. The projects of both companies located in the Russian East Siberia and the Far East and not far from each other. For Kopy Goldfields, it's Irkutsk and Amur region, and for Amur Zolota, it's Khabarovsk region. Kopy Goldfields, as an exploration company, has more resources and less reserves, 0.9 million of ounces of gold resources, 0.1 million ounces of gold reserves. And Amur Zolota, as a producing company, has very slightly different ratio. Most of resources are already converted into reserves, 1.4 million ounces total gold resources for Amur. And out of them, around 1 million ounces is already reserves. In production in 2019 amounted to 52,000 ounces. Assets of the combined company for Kopy Goldfields, it's very much Irkutsk region and three clusters. All the projects are in exploration and prospecting phase, where Malipatam is an early stage exploration, Verkhovya Tamaraka is a greenfield exploration, and Krasny project is in pre-feasibility stage, where we have resources. And for Amur, it's very much on the edge of the Pacific Ocean, Khabarovsk region, not far geographically from Irkutsk region. So the company, Amur Zolota, has several producing assets. The major of them at the moment is Perevalnaya, where the company has a mill and an open pit, which will move into underground in the near future. Then it has the second project called Jubilejne, an underground mine, which has been in operation for a long while and which will stay in operation for the foreseeable future. High-grade ore, and the next is a couple of producing alluvial mines, also in operation for a number of years. And the company has several development projects. One of them is Malutka, also in the same area. And the company has a project which is on the maintenance called Tas Yurach, where there is a mill. However, the reserves have been at the moment depleted and the mill is mothballed. Operations history of Amur Zolota. It's very interesting and actually very long history of operations. Amur Zolota has been part of a PGM producer called Artel Sarateli Amur, which has been operating in the area for more than 30 years. Not far from all the assets of Amur Zolota, there is a unique PGM placer deposit called Kondior. So if you will go into Google and type Kondior, you will actually come up with across a lot of pictures. So it's a unique deposit. And initially, the focus of the company was PGM, and most of the production was coming from the PGM. And then all these gold discoveries, which later made the assets and the basis for Amur Zolota, were discovered as very much a byproduct of PGM exploration. So the company is in operation for more than 30 years within the area, and in 2010 it was divided from Artel Sarateli Amur, and now it's a standalone gold producing company, however with a long production history. From the tables on this slide, you can see that since 2015 the production have been increasing, both ore processing and gold production steadily year by year. And then you can see the split between the reserves between different projects, between Malutka, Jubilejne, and Perivalne, and placer operations. And then Jubilejne and Malutka, the major projects going forward. But what I would like to stress with this slide, so Amur Zolota, it's seasoned and very well-based producing company with long history of operations and with long learning curve behind its gold production. Transaction highlights. The transaction is structured as a contribution in kind, where Amur Zolota shareholders will contribute 100% of shares in Amur Zolota in the exchange of 782 million shares, new shares in Kopy Goldfields. The number of new shares based on equity value of Amur Zolota of about 1.1 billion, which is corresponds to around $120 million. The implied subscription price is 1.46 Swedish krona, and it makes 50% premium for 3 months average price of Kopy Goldfields before the announcement. Following the transaction, Amur Zolota shareholders will hold around 88% of Kopy Goldfields after the completion, and the remaining 12% will be held by the current Kopy Goldfields shareholders. We see this transaction as value accretive for the current shareholders of Kopy Goldfields. So the transaction will unlock the potential of Kopy Goldfields resource base, and that means that with the support of the gold production and revenues coming from Amur Zolota, we'll have Kopy Goldfields will have a better position in developing Krasny and other greenfield projects. It will transform Kopy Goldfields from a high-impact exploration business to a consistent gold producer within the Russian gold mining universe. It will add gold production revenues and cash flow towards current Kopy Goldfields exploration focus. It will also expand Amur Zolota reserves and resources base and increase its geographic presence in Russia. We see good synergies from combined operations, since the assets are located in the most renowned in Russia gold mining regions. The combined company will have an aggregated EBITDA of 229 million Swedish kronor, around $24 million as for financial year 2019. If we look on this slide, where we try to put together portfolios and the financials of Kopy and Amur Zolota, what we can see is that within combined company, the revenue will be coming from Amur Zolota, $69 million for 2019, EBITDA around $24 million or 35% EBITDA ratio coming from Amur Zolota. Gold production 100% coming from Amur Zolota, 82,000 ounces for 2019. Gold resources, however, you can see that 40% will come from Kopy Goldfields, 61% will come from Amur Zolota, and the total combined gold resources for the company would be, following the completion of the transaction, 2.3 million ounces. And gold reserves mostly coming from Amur Zolota and will total 1.1 million ounces following the completion. On this slide, we put together an aggregated income statement for 2019. So it's aggregated, it doesn't include the effect of the transaction itself. On the aggregated level, the total revenue would be for 2019 663 million Swedish kronor. Less cost of sales will give us gross profit of 220 million Swedish kronor. Less general admin and various operating expenses will leave us with operating profit of 137 million Swedish kronor. Less financial costs, financial income, profit before tax 106 million Swedish kronor, income tax expenses, and then profit for the year attributable to the owners of the parent company is around 83 million Swedish kronor. Expected timetable and approvals. So the transaction was announced on May 29, and a notice to AGM have been issued. On June 30, we will have an AGM which should approve the issue of the new shares towards the Amur Zolota shareholders dependent on the transaction completion. And completion is expected within the third quarter, sometimes in or around August. So the transaction is subject to first the shareholders' approval on the annual general meeting of Kopy Goldfields. Then Kopy Goldfields is approved for continued trading on Nasdaq First North, and certain regulatory approvals such as merger control clearance in Russia should be received. So to putting it all together, we see that this transaction is very beneficial for Kopy Goldfields shareholders. And actually what we see from the market reaction during the last week following the transaction announcement, we overall see a fairly positive response from the market. The transaction will create a company with extensive gold resources and reserves in Russia, and most of reserves will be coming from Amur Zolota, which is in production, and I would say quite a fair amount of resources will also be coming from Kopy Goldfields, and also including a big greenfield exploration portfolio of Kopy Goldfields, like the Malipatam project, which does not have resources at the moment. However, it has an excellent potential to discover new gold resources. We see that these complementary businesses with gold production and gold exploration will create a unique combination. The transaction will transform Kopy Goldfields from a high-impact exploration business to a consistent and sustainable gold producer in the Russian gold mining universe. We expect good synergies from the combined operations, since our assets are located in not far from each other. So Irkutsk region and Amur region, they're actually neighboring Khabarovsk region, and they are located in the most renowned gold mining regions of Russia. We see significant value accretion from the combined assets and project portfolio. The transaction will imply 50% premium towards 3-month average price of Kopy Goldfields before the announcement of the transaction. And the combined company will have an aggregated EBITDA of 229 million Swedish kronor, or around $24 million as for financial year 2019, which will imply 35% on the EBITDA ratio. Now I'm open for questions and answers. Thank you very much for listening to the presentation.
Thank you so much, Mikhail. Could you please give me some, could you allude a little bit on the 2 or 3 possible future strategies for Kopy Goldfields? What are the possible scenarios, if you could compare a little bit, because I can see there are different ways that you could choose.
Yes, certainly. So we currently now have 2 areas where the new Kopy Goldfields will operate. First, it will be Khabarovsk, where there is an established production, and second is Irkutsk, where we have exploration, and we have Krasny project, which is in pre-feasibility, not yet in construction, but probably on the way for it. So we will see that the company will certainly develop further in Khabarovsk, where there is a good exploration upside around the existing producing assets. So once again, to remind, there are 3 mines in operation, Юбилейная, Перевальная, and a number of alluvial producers, plus there is 1 mill which is on the maintenance. So obviously adding new resources towards this existing production is certainly favorable.
So are you becoming, I'm sorry.
No, yes, please.
Are you becoming more of an exploration company than that you were in the past, would you say?
No, vice versa. In the past, we were only exploration, and now we're becoming production and exploration.
Yes.
Yeah, and obviously, as an exploration company, as a production company, you always need to add towards to increase the reserves which you are producing on a yearly basis. That's why we see that exploration will proceed in Khabarovsk, it will proceed in Irkutsk, and then we certainly have more opportunities and more power to develop, and more possibilities and resources to develop Krasny together with juni Gold.
And if you would, how do you think? What do you expect about the Krasny project? Where will it land, and when will we see a decision regarding the bidding and the sales of the project?
Well, I don't know, and that it will be a sale. We have a project. We have an agreement with juni Gold on the development of the project. So we will proceed towards moving this project in the next stage, and then dependent on the merits, we will take the further decision how to produce it. But so far, what we certainly see now is that we certainly have resources to take it into production. So in the past, taking the project from exploration into construction is obviously it's a big effort for the company. And considering 100 million, just for instance, or 150 million US dollars, which would be needed to take the project into production, then for us it would be like a fairly difficult, a fairly big task. But now having the revenues coming from Amur Zolot operations, now taking Krasny into production is far more straightforward decision for Kopy.
Yeah. What about the Mali-Patom area? Are you disappointed about the findings in that area?
No, vice versa. So last year when we drilled our first, actually, not only our, it was the first exploration holes for bedrock gold drilled in this area. And just to remind that this area has historically produced more than 70 tons of alluvial gold. So it's more than 2 million ounces. So alluvial gold is there, and it's been in production for more than 100 years, and the alluvial operations are developing in the area. So there is obviously some sources of this alluvial gold somewhere. So with our first drilling, we came across structures which does have anomalous gold. So it's not like if we drill just outside of Moscow and in Stockholm. No, it's anomalous gold content, but it's not, the grade is not mineable.
Okay.
So, yeah, sorry.
We have a question from a viewer. Are there any plans on changing to a bigger list, for example, First North is the question.
Well, I would say the bigger company will certainly be looking for attracting institutional shareholders, and institutional shareholders will certainly look for listing at premier. Will be looking for premier listing. So we will be following the completion, considering moving to the premier listing in
But
Stockholm.
the timeline for this, is it too early to say, or?
I would say the timeline was first to complete the transaction and then plan for the next step.
Okay. Earlier you sold the Kopylovsky, but you haven't yet gotten the full payments for this sale. When do you think the payments for the Kopylovsky asset will be completed? Will it be this year, next year? Because it has been different scenarios there.
Yes, we sold Kopylovskaya, and in accordance to the agreement, the full payment should be done until the middle of 2022, as far as I recall. There is a possibility for the new owners of Kopylovskaya, if they will pay earlier or ahead of schedule, there will be some discount for the price from 6 to 5 million US dollars. So obviously there is an opportunity and a direct interest for the new owners to pay earlier and ahead of schedule. However, with this coronavirus development and with some delay on their operations, they might be taking a more conservative scenario.
Okay. Could you describe your financial situation? How if you're content, or are there any worries?
Our financial situation is in accordance our forecast as we planned and scheduled it. So we released our annual report last week. So you can see the figures which we released, and we are on track with the financing until to cover the company operations ongoing. And then following the transaction with the cash flow and the revenues coming from Amur Zolota, it will be not such a stress for the company to support the operations in the future.
Okay, thank you. And from a shareholder's perspective, what would be the best thing to happen for Kopy Goldfields at the moment, would you say?
The best thing, I would say, would be to support the transaction on the EGM on June 30, and we will do our best for completion to take place as early as possible and latest in August during the summer, and then really very much see how the company will be developing. There are a lot of plans and a lot of activities which we will see for the new company, and also considering, which is very important, considering a very favorable mining environment in Russia, which is supported first by a very high gold price. It's actually a very much record gold price in Russia, and second, supported by weak ruble. So ruble has devalued in Russia for more than 10% since the beginning of the year, very much based on the oil price fall and this coronavirus development. So it's a weak ruble, and all the mining costs are in ruble. It's a strong gold price, and the revenue is coming in US dollars. So that means that the margins in mining in Russia are increasing dramatically during this year.
Yeah.
So for the shareholders, it's really it will be interesting that how the company will develop. We're not until the completion is finalized. We're not publishing any going forward statements, but we will do that certainly following the completion. And I believe this would be interesting for the shareholders for sure.
Okay, and the stock market doesn't really follow the gold price. Could you comment on what are the actual drives for the stock? What is affecting Kopy Goldfields the most? You mentioned the Russian currency, and what else?
I would say in general, if you will look on the mining companies, their share price is very much following the gold price because their margin are increasing, means that profitability is increasing, earnings per share increasing. That is so that for producing companies, the share price is very much following the gold price. Also, there are many other things which are affecting the market. And Kopy Goldfields so far, because it was not a producing company, it was an exploration company. So it was an exploration, although it is exploration in gold, but this is a risky business. And I would say the investors who invest into mining companies and exploration companies, these are different investors and with different attitude towards risk. So increase in gold prices doesn't immediately affect exploration companies. So that's why if you will see on the prices, on the share prices of exploration company, they were less affected by the gold price. But the mining companies, they were affected. And now we're very much moving towards being a mining company. So the gold price will have far more effect for Kopy in the future.
So, Mikhail, now you are in lockdown. What is it possible for you to do? What is your main priority at the moment before ending this interview?
Main priority probably, as for all people who is in the lockdown, is to stay and basically arrange that the family is in the good shape and everyone is working and everyone is safe and sound. And the second is really to complete the transaction. We started the transaction and we prepared the transaction and we announced the transaction in the lockdown situation. So it did put a lot of pressure on the operations. However, as probably everyone now in the universe and in the world now understands that a lot of things can be done electronically, and probably the business life will be changing. But yes, we prepared the transaction in the lockdown. We announced it in the lockdown. And we are going to complete it partially in the lockdown. Moscow and Russia is moving out of the lockdown fairly soon. So by the end of June, most of the restrictions are going to be released.
I wish you all the best with all this, and thank you so much for the presentation. And goodbye, Mikhail.
Thank you very much
Thank you.
for support and to the listeners.